All right, we're here with HP Kuusela, who is the designer of Galenus, which is one of the upcoming games that Ion Game Design is going to release with a Kickstarter on October 20th. Um, HP, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm a Finnish doctor, father of two. I have a dog, beagle called Nero, and I've been designing board games for about 10 years, and two of them have been published, more have not. And I've been working on Galenus for the past 4 years, so it's a big passion project for me, actually.
Okay, great. So can you tell us a little more about Galenus, just a brief overview, and then we can discuss more over time what the game is. First of all, what is the theme of the game?
The theme is a second century Roman doctor uh, called Galenus, or Galen as English speaking world knows him. And he was basically one of the greatest doctors of all time. Uh, his writings and methods of medicine were the epitome of Western medicine for 1,000 years after him. So he was a big deal, and this game is you're not playing as him, of course not. You are playing as one of his unknown pupils, which we don't know any names of the pupils, so it might as well be you. And you are starting doctors in the city of Rome in about 160 AD, and the time of the Emperor Marcus Aurelius, and later his son Commodus. And this was basically part of the Pax Romana time, the height of the Roman Empire, the last of the good emperors and everything like that. So this is what we know typically in history, and we also know like the movie Gladiator is about the same era, but actually it was also a very putrid and unhealthy place to live if you look at it from a medical history perspective. So it's the like the number one uh, urban city up until then, and it has all the horrible ailments that one can imagine in such a place. So this is where the players are starting out as young physicians, trying to get the favor of the master and compete ferociously against each other, like basically everybody did in Rome those days. Everything was competition and reputation and poisoning and everything like that, and it was like that for doctors also. So that's like the thing that drew me, and I was like reading the history, and when they started to talk about medical contests, like bouts of doctors going against each other in surgery, and people watching that, then I thought that this will make a great board game, because well, of course, we have medical entertainment now. We have the doctors on television telling stuff and truths, but it was like that in Rome also in the second century, and so the people, it's a cutthroat competition of healing patients and studying, because you have to do clinical practice and then you have to do theoretical study, so that those two things have to go like one after the other, so you can get to a higher level of skill. You need both. So basically you're healing patients, you are studying, you are making publications, and you're at the end of every round there's going to be a medical competition with Galenus basically as the judge about who will say what kind of medicine this competition is about. And of course there are also gladiators.
Yeah, of course. Curiously, you set the game during the Pax Romana, but then you name your dog Nero after.
Yeah, well, that's a pun because Nero almost also means genius in
Ah.
Finnish.
Oh, well,
So
I
like
wasn't aware. Good to know. So, you mentioned previously that Galenus, more about Galenus the person. He was, the most accomplished doctor of antiquity, again said in the time of Marcus Aurelius. Um, and for a solid 1500 years was kind of like Aristotle was with philosophy.
mm,
He was pretty much the person. His writings and works were the standard for medicine. You mentioned
basically, yes,
up until
his
up
his
until like the scientific revolution during the Renaissance.
mm,
And you mentioned that you studied him in school. Even to this day, you still
mm.
um, you know research his history. Can you tell me more about, like, your studies of Galenus in current day, or how you got
Well,
inspired, like where you
mm,
know how you got into this research, what all of
mm.
that?
Sure. So basically, we are the name is branded into the head of Finnish medical students early because the name of the book you have to study for the entrance exams for the medical school used to be Galenus. So you would go through the book with his name 24 times, and that would of course tell you that this was a person of heavy competition, and it was a book about anatomy and physiology. And naturally, the theories of him don't hold any water anymore. He does have, surprisingly, you sometimes you find that he did things very well. For instance, he could, like, he knew how to suture tendons and muscles. He would say that if the muscle is cut like this, you need only one suture, and it can be a mattress suture. And if it's cut like this, you have to do many levels of sutures. And also, it's at the same time amazing that they did these things, but of course they were completely off in all of their medical theory and everything. So basically, I ran into him in medical school in the class for medical history, and that's where you would like study, of course, all the other ones. Well, basically it's Hippocrates, Galenos, then there's
Yeah.
the rest.
What I find
And
really interesting about Galenus is how much he was able to infer just from, because he wasn't able to dissect humans.
exactly,
It
yes,
was not allowed in those. It was not allowed even into the 15th century thereabouts, and
yeah,
even then it
true.
was controversial. So
Mhm.
he had to study. He got his students to basically look at like dead gladiators and just examine their bodies, and he did a lot of dissection on like animals,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
were, yeah, that like he basically would choose different animals that he thought had similar anatomies and try to glean knowledge from that,
yeah.
from what I've read
Mm.
of him. So a lot
Yeah,
of this information was really had to be inferred. It wasn't like you could work on an actual human and see how
yeah,
how this worked.
yeah. It was taboo. So basically, not as much dead gladiators. He studied in Alexandria.
Hmm.
He was born in Pergamon, and he studied in Smyrna and Alexandria. And in Alexandria, in Egypt, they would have, of course, the whole embalming thing going on.
Yeah.
So there they would have some places of studying human anatomy there. Then the one place where Galenus missed out, and because of his hubris or something, he didn't want to go to an to accompany the emperor to one of his campaigns. He did one, but on another campaign, the emperor let the doctors accompanying him really dissect a hopefully dead barbarian. So Galenus he heard of this. He was very irate, and he was like, this opportunity was wasted on those fools. He was basically
Yeah.
saying, and then he would also, the gruesome parts was because they would have like this cutaneous anthrax going around, which would basically like take off the skin of a person, and they could observe the muscles while functioning uh, from the skin, behind the skin,
Yeah.
because the skin was no more. So that's one place. And then he also, on his journeys, he would run into a human skeleton, a highway bandit left on the road. He would like lean that also. But basically, for instance, he went to the grave thinking that the humans have a duplicate uterus,
Mm.
like many animals. So basically, that was how people thought for 1,500 years. But he did not think that the uterus would go around causing hysteria like some medieval doctors. Because he had seen for himself that it's stuck. So he actually uh, like said that that's nonsense already in the 2nd century, that the uterus is not moving anywhere.
All right. So, as far as the game itself,
Mm-hmm.
how did you come up with the ideas for the game? You wanted it's a worker placement game.
Mm-hmm.
And we can kind of, I'm gonna show the game right now. So this is the
Mm-hmm.
game, and we
Yeah.
have, a lot of the elements that we talked about. We have here the different regions in Rome, um,
Mm-hmm.
and then depending on your class, and then we have the gladiators here, and we have the medical contest track that happens here. And we'll talk about the edicts and other things eventually. But so you started off
Mm-hmm.
deciding to make. Did you decide to make a worker placement game, or make it more of a Euro as compared to make it? What was your thought process in? This seems like it would be a really cool game. Now
Mm-hmm.
let's try to make it a game.
Yeah, well, that's I kind of collected things, what it should be about, and very early I thought that it should be like, to make things easy for myself, was to like use the perspective of Galenus for everything.
Hmm.
So that's how I thought that I would approach like the science and everything of the game, so you don't have to mix mix too much like thought into what's the real science or what's everything. It would be like Galenus would have thought about it. And the mechanism actually was brought about this from this. The game has a worker placement mechanic. I wanted to be a single person who's a single doctor, and the perspective of the game is a single person's perspective. But then you would, I thought that this single person uh, would, two thoughts actually. He would be like torn everywhere. He would be very busy, right?
Hmm.
So it's a single person who is whose 1 year of study is comprised of 6 action pawns. And then also what came into mind straight from the theme and text and history was how incredibly slow like the medical profession was. So basically, well, Hippocrates did say that the job of a doctor is to entertain the patient while nature heals them. So basically, also in the time of Galenus, the doctors would visit the patients daily, and see how they are doing, get to know them, get to know their pulse, because pulse analysis was big with Galenus and the time, and also look at their excrements and what they are eating, and give advice what they should eat, and of course administer various cures. So basically, the that's what caused the idea of the game, which is it's a two-tiered worker placement. So
Hmm.
basically, you are working, but you are working while everybody else is working, and working means that you are choosing the places where you are working that year. So basically, the first everybody goes around and round and placing their action pieces to show where they are working, and they are basically working, for instance, in a region of Rome together at the same time. And
Yeah,
then
let's
what's
actually show this real quick. So you
mm,
have right now, these are the different worker placement spots right here. So you could, for
mm,
example, and this is, let's say in our scenario, we have two different people, and they are the game has asymmetric player boards, and then they have uh, similar player boards depending on what type of game you want to play. So we're actual students of medicine.
mm,
And there are different things that we can decide to work on. We can choose to cure patients, and these cubes are, you know, patients that have different maladies.
mm.
And we can also decide to go to the arena to try to cure gladiators who. Um, I guess before we get there, we should discuss the different types of ailments, because there's
Mm.
four in
Sure.
this game.
Yes.
Essentially red, blue, black, and yellow. Um,
Yes.
so so you've and these are red is
Humors.
yeah. So yeah, and I believe red is blood, and there's can you describe them for me?
Yeah, sure. So basically, the humoral theory of medicine
Yeah.
was from the 500 years earlier, from the time of Hippocrates. It was like there are four basic humors inside the body: the blood, the phlegm, the yellow bile, and the black bile.
Hmm.
And nothing is ever too simple. It's a more convoluted theory than that. But basically, imbalances in these would be like causes of different uh, maladies or diseases. So basically, the skills in this game are divided into these four categories. So basically, the red, the blood would like signify physical trauma.
Hmm.
The phlegm would be like be things that would happen when you are at the mercy of the elements. So
So
basically
the folks
like
here that are closer to the Tiber River would be more
mm,
inclined to have problems, phlegm diseases, as compared to the gladiators who would have more physical trauma,
mm,
as the things that you know, they needed treated. And
yes,
that is, you know, that is conveyed in the game that way.
yes, because we have the three social classes of Rome,
Hmm.
basically the major social classes here. We have the patricians.
Hmm.
They will never have blue diseases.
Right.
They are warm and happy. So, and then we have the plebeias, the plebs, who are all the army folk, and they will also have the physical trauma sometimes, and they will have a big bit of a mixture of things of the higher and lower classes. And then we have the like the biggest class of Rome, which would be the peregrini, the non-citizens, and like foreigners, freed slaves, everything like that, and they would basically be in the worst places. For instance, near the Tiber, where the floods would come and everything. So they are in the two lowest places. So these are uh, so the diseases in the game will hit these areas differently. So the rest of the disease being like black bile would be like uh, very very bad stuff. Also, they are not this clear cut in the humoral theory, because
Hmm.
basically what they would see, there is no black bile in the human body, but they would see coagulated blood as some kind of bile
Hmm.
in feces, for instance. Now it is black. It must be black bile coming out of the
Yeah.
body. And for
Yeah.
instance,
They don't know where it's
anthrax.
coming from. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So for instance, anthrax would cause this. So anthrax was a black bile disease. And then there's the
Hmm.
yellow bile, which they did know that came from the liver, and the liver was a very important. They thought that liver was kind of the place where the intestines actually took the stuff,
Hmm.
and liver would make be important that way. So that's the like the gout and stuff like that.
The rich diseases.
The rich diseases of living too well.
Yeah.
Gout was very big in Rome, because they would use so much lead in everything that actually that would make them very gouty.
Hmm.
And so that, and the yellow diseases are never seen in the lower parts of the town. So as history unfolds in the game, the diseases hit different parts of Rome differently, and the different diseases have been abstracted in this way, so that they can like fit the different areas, regions of Rome, depending what kind of regions they are. And also, of course, you need skill to treat these
Yeah, so we have the skill
diseases.
track here. So you mentioned
Mm.
before, basically the game you're overseen by Galenus, Galenus, who
Mm.
is over here.
Yep.
And you are, this is you as a person, and you have your own player pawns. You have up to 6 player pawns that can
Mm-hmm.
do, again, the different things. You're deciding whether you want to rest or you want to check a prognosis or choose a sect or,
Mm-hmm.
go to the theater or, get some medicine or treat patients. And
Yes.
and treating patients increases your skill in one of these types of maladies. So if you treat gladiators, you learn more about physical trauma and you go up on that track. If you um, uh, treat any of these other maladies, that you gain
Mm.
skills in those. So this is a skill track
Mm-hmm.
where if you were to, let's say you were to go here, and you were the
Mm-hmm.
first person to go there, you would as your action. So there's a planning phase and an action phase, but
Yes.
as your action, you could choose to cure, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
2 cubes,
In the start, 1 cube
1 cube.
per,
Yeah.
yeah, of every
So you
color
cure
that
one
you
cube,
choose.
and then you go up. Let's say that let's use actual cubes of our colors. So I'm gonna take that here. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I would then, because I cured this person, my skill in the black track, in the black bile
Mm-hmm.
track, would go up 1, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's essentially how the skill level works. You added an interesting dynamic to this, which is if another
Mm-hmm.
player then goes to the same region
Mm-hmm.
and they cure a black cube,
Mm-hmm.
they go up 2 knowledge because they are learning from the knowledge that you've already gained.
Yes, and that's also like from the times of Hippocrates. It's even if the doctors are competing, they must help and teach each other.
Yeah.
So basically, that's the cause of that. And basically, as we were in the how the different actions work. So basically, first you, like you said, there was a kind of a planning phase, but you can
Hmm.
stop your planning phase anytime
Yeah.
and start to get results. And if you start to get results before other
Yeah.
players, then you will get the go first in different places. And many times it's good to go first, but in this case, for instance, there would be benefits to going second because your skill would go up more because if you are getting results alone, there's nobody to like
Yeah.
learn from, but after everybody after you in this place would learn from your mistakes and of course your successes also. So that would raise their skill level. And in every place, the to go first is always like beneficial. So basically, when you're getting medicines, you get 2 medicines,
Mhm.
and other people would get 1 medicine. And if you go first in the medical competition preparation, then you would be the only one who gets to move the Galenus pawn one
Yeah.
space. And also in there's in the resting area, which is you have the gymnasium and you have the thermae, the sauna, and then you have the temple of Aesclepius, the god of medicine. Two of those have only one possible position, so only the first one to get results in the temple area would get to
Yeah, when you go to medicine, you
get.
mentioned before, right here you see the 2. The first person gets 2, whereas
Mm.
everyone else only gets 1. But yeah, it's really
Yes.
interesting the way that you made this mechanic work because this is how medicine works. As you said,
Mm.
the first person to do a surgery or try a treatment
Mm.
has no precedent to go on, so they're learning and
Mm.
everyone's learning from that, and then you kind of build off that. So it's an interesting mechanic there. To go back to
Mm.
the way that the action selection works, because this is interesting.
Mm.
You start the game with six pawns, six action pawns.
Yes.
And you can play all those six action pawns. So this is actually my point marker there. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to. So I could
Mm-hmm.
decide I'm going to play this during my planning phase. And then on my next turn, I can say, okay, I'm done with my planning phase. Now I want to actually do things, which could be
Mm-hmm.
curing patients or any number of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the really interesting dynamic of that is I might put out six pawns, you might put out three pawns. So
Mm-hmm.
while I'm still out putting pawns, you are actually already doing actions. So
Yeah.
if it may be a situation where I put a pawn there first, and then you put a
Mm-hmm.
pawn here second, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I keep putting pawns, and then you decide to actually get results, and you get these cubes, and you cure these cubes before I can actually cure anything. So
Yes.
it's an interesting dynamic there of uh, you want to do you want to do everything, but if you try to do more than other people, you could miss out on things,
Mm.
right? And
Yeah, I would
how
say.
did you come up with that idea? What was your did you have like certain inspiration from that or
Well, I would say that it came from the, like I said earlier, it was the slowness of the times. So
hmm
basically, it was like to work and get results are two different things.
hmm
You have to work a long time, and then you get the
yeah
results. So that's like the good old perspiration and inspiration thing. So basically, that was the basis of this two-tiered approach, and also it gives a interesting dynamic to the game and some excitement, because if two persons really want that yellow pawn, when one person goes somewhere, he's cool, like I'm gonna get this. When other people start to gather
yeah
around, you start to count that how many yellow pawns are there. Do I have to go now to get any, or if I really want those two medicine cards, because all of the medicine cards at show are always taken away in the end of the round and new 5-1. So if you want that medicine card, you gotta act this round. But do you want to do also these other things? How much do you value your points now, or how much do you value your instant what you need most, basically? And with some luck, the other players don't want to to the places as much as you. So you have to think what is the like the hierarchy of the other person's importance also
yeah
in the when you choose how many. It's like almost like a bit of an auction, how
yeah
betting
yeah
where
it's
everybody wants to go
in
most.
in our playtest Yoon said it was essentially you're playing chicken, right? Like you're deciding like
Mm,
how much things can I
mm,
do before it's whoever flinches first. Well, I'm gonna stop now because I
mm,
want to be able to do this before you can do that, which is adds a
mm,
really interesting tension to the game.
mm. Yeah,
Um,
and that's also why the player order is like important. So the medical contest is also, who wins that will be the first player, because of course he sets the tone. So basically, if everybody would play all six of their actions, then it's just a normal game with the player order. The first player will
yeah,
get to two things first. But
yeah.
of course, if somebody like jumps ship first, then the whole thing like falls
Yeah,
apart, and everybody is scrambling to do
yeah.
their thing
I, I
after
I
somebody
really
starts to get results.
I really like that
Mm,
dynamic. I think it adds a lot more
mm,
tension to the game than your typical, worker placement
mm,
game where you always have three actions and everyone puts it out
mm,
and oh, you took my spot,
mm.
type of situation. So,
You have now you potentially take my spot
yeah.
here.
So,
Yeah.
we mentioned the skill track. So you're going up this skill track, and then when you get
Mm,
to a certain space, if you get to this first black line, you
mm.
get this scroll, which signifies publishing.
Yeah,
Correct?
you don't get that. You have to. That's the idea, that you get that far. You can go with just clinical practice, but
Yes.
then you have to study, and to study
Yes.
you have to put a pawn to your own home,
Yes.
and
That would be here
w-
for publication.
yes, uh, as first you put it in your own home, and after and when you get the results, you would put it into publication. And of course, you have to also when you get results in this thing is
You need focus.
yes, and
So
this is
let's say that
basically
I cured these two patients,
yep.
right? And then that goes to my focus track.
And everybody has played Princess of Florence. This is like the Princess of Florence. You can choose to take points or something else.
Hmm.
So in this, you either save them for later as focus or
Or
take
you
the
can
victory
have
points.
points. Yeah, you get points here. Yeah.
Yeah. So with focus and home study, you will get past those heavy lines.
Hmm.
And again, so the first line is you make a minor publication. Second is you make an actual opus, a book, and the third is you make a magnum opus, a big book. And the first one who goes past that line will get the scroll, and the rest of the people only study. Maybe they study your scroll. You wrote the book in yellow bile diseases, so now the other people also have to use the focus to get past that line and stay at home and not do any healing and take that publishing action, but they are actually only studying. They go past the line also, and in the end of the game, of course, these little scrolls are 2 points each, and you can collect them for a quick win, quick. But if you focus all your time in getting these scrolls, you also get them from the medical contest. You might be able to end the game early with
Yeah.
eight of them, but yeah.
So the game, yeah, it's not just a points game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, if you get 8 scrolls, if somebody is getting all the scrolls, it doesn't matter how many points you have, they're going to win because they've published all of these great works and they've become, they're going to be remembered in history. So it doesn't matter how many patients you cure, um,
Mm-hmm.
that they won't remember you. But I think it is interesting that. Uh, you have that element in the game. Essentially, you're not just curing patients, you're curing patients to gain knowledge so that you can cure
Mm-hmm.
more patients. So at the start
Yes.
you can only cure one patient, but
Mm-hmm.
when you get to the next level over here, now you can cure 2 patients, 2 cubes, and when you get here you can cure 3 patients and then 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's much like in medicine, you're gaining knowledge so that you can cure more patients, so that you can gain more knowledge, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting development there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
Also you will people start to like a bit like specialize.
Hmm.
Somebody maybe always runs to the gladiator arena and all goes up in the red,
Yeah.
and somebody thinks that because the phlegm line is the shortest, actually it's the easiest to get up in. Somebody wants the quick fix to get on top of that, and somebody is focusing on the patricians and only curing yellow, because all of the different ailments also have a secondary influence, because it was known at the time that when doctors cured certain diseases, they could also get sick themselves. So every time you are curing black bile plagues, you will lose one health, and every time you cure yellow Richmond's diseases, you will gain one reputation. And these are the currency of the game.
Yeah.
We don't have money in this game because that's just vulgar in a sophist thinking of Galenus. So basically, we are gaining philosophy, health, and reputation, and focus, and those are the things we are collecting and using in as currency in the game. So uh, basically, and the red is only the special thing about red is that you can always find red in the arena. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's
those
yeah,
are
that is another interesting element that we didn't cover is the fact that if you cure these black phlegm diseases, so you have a track here for your health. Let's
Mhm.
we didn't mention this up front, but this is obviously prototype art. This is not at all the final art. This is you know,
Yeah, we have a good artist, Josephine, and we
yeah,
were discussing.
Josephine Strand, who
Yeah,
worked on the PAX
yeah.
Renaissance second edition art. and
Yeah.
some elements of High Frontier for all. She is currently working on the art, but this is obviously just, a prototype. But in this case,
It's my art.
it has its own charm.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, you have a health track, and for every black cube that you cure, your health track goes down. And
Mm-hmm.
you also have a fame track. For every yellow cube that you cure, your fame goes up. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple interesting elements there. Number one, uh, it's very accurate again to the way that medicine worked, particularly at the time, and even now, where now in the time of a pandemic, where the more time you spend with patients, the more likely your health is going to go down, to the
Mm-hmm.
point where you can't. It starts to affect your focus, right? Because that's what happens in this game.
Yes.
Your health eventually starts to affect your focus, and
Mm-hmm.
that can be a problem. So you need to go to the
Gym.
gymnasium to rest and
Like
heal
today.
yourself.
Yes. Exactly like modern times. You gotta
Yeah.
go to the gym to get your health full. The other thing which is not true today is that at that time, because of the competition,
Yes, the
if your
fame.
reputation, yeah, the reputation, if it gets too high, your colleagues try to poison you and you start to lose health. So that idea came from the snake of Asclepius. So basically, there's a snake-like like continuation of all the attributes. So they change into one another depending how that would affect everything. Because if you get too much focus, you
Hmm.
will change that to philosophy actually, and
Yeah.
if you get too much philosophy, that will turn into fame, and if you
Yeah.
get
So
too
you have
much
that
fame,
there, and then you go there.
and then you will lose health, and if you lose too much health, you will lose focus, and after you don't have any more focus left, you will start to lose victory points. So it has this flow. You have to manage your basically you have to manage your reputation. You don't want to be too famous, and but it's also useful because you can use it to gain more patients to your home clinic. You can basically get more patients by spending your fame. So fame is that kind of a currency. Or you also need fame to get admission to cure the gladiators, because that was basically also a very good place for a doctor to be.
Yeah.
So the that was like a good gig. You would get to cure the gladiators. You were like set off. You will have work. So those
Yeah.
are
It's
the
it's an interesting cycle the way that it works. An interesting balance where you have to have. I know that the Swedes have it worked for it Lago more. It's like not too little, not too much. You need to have a balance of um, fame and health and focus and to be able to do your job, which I also really enjoy in games. I really like games that it's not just maximize everything, right? It's not just
mm,
get, I'm gonna get all the things, right? It's
mm,
a game of a balance. If you have
yeah,
to have the exact balance to be able to do things most efficiently, which
yes,
which I find really much more appealing in games because I find it more challenging. Where
mm,
it's like you have to really find that balance, and really it depends on other players too. If you're
mm,
if I need to see where you are, and then I need to kind of like match that balance. It's the same thing
mm,
with the actions, where if
mm,
everyone else is doing 6 actions, well, I can do
mm,
just slightly fewer and be able to get things
mm,
before everyone else can get things. So
mm,
there's a really interesting balance in this game. Um,
yeah.
so the other thing that I'd like to talk about is these
Mm,
edicts over here, the sects. Um,
yeah.
and can you tell me more about the thinking there and
Mm,
how they came about?
yeah. Yeah. Because they well, just like I would say the balance of the thing is that the reputation you can't have too much. Galenus always, like in his writing, he has huge amount of books. He would say that it's very bad for a doctor to only heal famous people and get reputation. He was kind of a dick, so he was actually also himself all about reputation, but he would he would saw himself as this great philosopher, sophist, stoic, and would scorn that he was just famous because he was the best. Maybe it's true, but the medical sects were a real thing, and they were the three main sects of the time, and also they would like have different subsects. So basically, the doctors would the most fast sect to get to be a doctor would be the Methodists, because that was the new thing, atom theory. So basically, the atom theory was like everything is made from these small particles called atoms. Of course, they didn't know about what atoms really today are, but small particles. And if these particles, which are the basis of all matter, are compressed too hard, a person will be sick. And if they are in flux, which means that they are too far apart, a person will be sick. And basically, it takes 6 months to learn this medicine, and after that, you can cure anything by basically compressing these atoms. And what they would like to do is they would like you to fast for 3 days if you have a fever. So that would compress you. you would go be like dehydrated, and they thought
I'm
that
sure
that's
that
the thing.
worked.
Yeah, nothing works. Galenus himself did venesections,
Yeah.
and because he did them, they used to do them all across
Yeah.
the Dark Ages. So he
And that's
was
another
not.
thing I want to discuss eventually. But
Yeah,
so the
yeah,
dogmatists and the
yeah.
emperors.
Yeah, the dogmatists were basically, as this name says, that they were like the Greeks were like the ancients, even for Romans, because Hippocrates was 500 years before. So basically, they said that you should do things as they have always been done and don't mess with that.
Hmm. Much
Full
like
stop.
now, people are still
No
dogmatic
dogma.
today. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then the
That was one of
emperors.
them. Empirists were basically even that doesn't mean exactly what it means today. They were about uh, seeing what works and using that.
Hmm.
But the way how they came about what works, they would believe a lot in pure luck, for instance. So you would give snake venom to this person, and his leprosy would go away. So now that
Let's
was
just try that.
empirical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
let's
this
use
will work.
this. Yeah. So they had this system of how to empirically
Hmm.
try things, and Galen himself wrote about all of these sects and why he didn't believe in them. If he would have been something, he would have been most of these an empirists, but he like scorned them also. Basically, well, great thing about Galenus was one of his major works is named The Method of Medicine, and the Methodists had the method of medicine, but Galenus published a work saying this is the method of medicine. So basically, and then probably had to run away to Campania because they wanted to kill him. After that, there was this the Methodist sect called the Aristotelians. How do you pronounce it? Who were really, he would really like get on their case and write these polemics about them, and they really hated him. So he got into trouble with all of these sects. But in the game, a player can choose to join a sect. You do that in the Thermae, and that will give you a one-time bonus during the game, and also it will give you a tiebreaker in the medical contest because you have a big sect behind you, even
Okay.
if Galenus
Yeah.
doesn't like that.
Yeah. So you mentioned venesection, which we have the venesection demand here. And can you
Yep.
describe that a little more, what it does in the game and what it's supposed
Mm.
to exemplify?
Yeah, well, venesection was like what you would have like cosmetology or some kind of treatments,
Hmm.
like health treatments, like physio. I don't want to like rag on anybody, but basically you would have like a treatment to keep healthy. You would get a venesection like every year, and of course it was also a treatment for diseases. But I didn't want to put it in basically that much into that position here. But you had to have it because historically Galenus did it. So basically in this game you would there are the regions all have different extra little powers every game, and in some games part of those powers are that you can perform venesections in this area if you don't have anything else to do. If you run out of cubes, that was something that it was too nasty in playtesting, because you can use the medicine cards, for instance, to take a lot of cubes, then somebody would be like left with nothing in a region. So now we have every region will have a secondary action that a person can do instead of the healing. So some of those are about venesection, and also you can perform venesections in your home every time. They will only give you points, so you can do them. You don't gain any focus, and they will give you victory points. And they are also such that because they are bad, and luckily Galenus did write polemic writing about not doing too much venesections. So if you do too much, so that you have the most venesection cubes in the end of the game, you will lose points in the end of the game, and hopefully you will gain more than you lose. So it's a choice. Do you want to go there? Because you can always perform venesection with your skill that you are left over when you're doing everything. But if you do venesections and you don't do enough of them, you might even lose a few points in the end of the game. And they are basically, because I think of them as like a bit of a like a quackery in this game. So basically the demand for them will rise. The better the situation in Rome in the end of the round, the more empty regions there are, the more venesection demand comes, because
Hmm.
people have like time to worry about getting their like well-being handled, well-being treatments on, instead of getting sicknesses dealt with. But Galenus did all kinds of
Yeah.
weird bloodletting, because they thought that there could be too much blood. So he would sometimes say that you should take the arterial blood between these two fingers, and that'll be fine. And that person, basically, in my logic, it would be like that if you draw enough blood from a person, his fever will go down, because he will go into shock.
Yeah. Yeah.
He will be cold and sweaty. So that's something they could see. They could see the change.
Correlation does not necessarily equal causation.
Exactly. Yes.
You mentioned the another interesting part of the game is the essentially the events. So
Mm-hmm.
you have these fate cards here, and these fate
Yeah.
cards correspond to the different areas of Rome. So you have again the
Mm-hmm.
regions here. So the regions would
Mm-hmm.
be the Villa Urbana, and these change every game. So we have a deck of cards that will change
Mm-hmm.
these regions. And in this game, we
Mm-hmm.
have the Templum Pacis, and we have Villa Rustica, and Piscina Publica, the Domi Equites, the Ostia, and the Via Flaminia. And these are, different parts in Rome,
Of
heading all the way
Rome.
down
Yeah.
to the Tiber River, which is down here.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah,
and
they are based on the 14 Augustine regions of Rome, and
mhm,
they originally were numbered, but at this time they would be called by the main landmark.
mhm,
And because of this landmark or the region, they were pretty easy to put in the different social classes. So
yeah.
which would go where? Yeah.
Which is not too different from now, right? You have different neighborhoods, and that relates to the different social
Hmm.
classes. So you
Exactly.
you have that, and then when you play fate cards, the fate cards kind of determine the both the diseases that happen. So in this
Mm.
case, the Antonine Plague is going to add
Mm.
2 black and 2 yellow to
Mm.
the Templum Passis. And
Yes.
you have here, a case of elephantiasis, which is leprosy you mentioned. Yeah.
Leprosy. Yeah.
So
Yes.
that would add 2 black cubes, and this kind of goes to, again, this would be a black disease, just like you mentioned with anthrax, because these would cause the skin to go black, and
Mm.
you would have to, so you would put one in this, two in this region, then one in, another region. In this case, the Via Flaminia, and then
Mm.
you have some, there are none here right now, but you have some cards that will cause these cards to flip depending on certain things that happen. So for example, if the
Yeah,
Antonine Plague happens, flip this card over. In this case, flip to backside if there is a fire in the Temple District,
yeah,
which
because
would,
that's the temple
yeah.
district. Hmm. And
So,
those are things that happened during the time Galenus was in Rome.
mhm,
So basically, for instance, the fire of the temple district, Galen would lose all of his writings, almost all of them, up until then. And you can imagine at the time of like writing by hand, that would be like devastating. And that was
mhm,
basically the main devastation of his life, was losing his writings. And for the rest of his life, he would try to get his works back and write as many again as possible. And those are the ones that we have nowadays. And if and when the fire of the temple district happens, this will flip over, and that will make the medicine cards called writings of Galenus worth points. So you can basically go and take turn your medicine cards to point certain medicine cards to points, because Galen is now really interested in getting his work back. And then the other ones are, for instance, the Villa Rustica. That meant like the villas of the patricians around, a bit far away from,
mhm,
more far away from Rome. They would like to, of course, go there in the hot season and the cold season and the plague season to be away. So after the Antonine Plague hits, it will flip, and that will mean that to go there will give you some benefits, because there's a lot of patricians there. It will give you skill in yellow. They will, and you will get venesection, if I remember correctly. You
yeah.
can perform that also. So they are a nice. I
They add a
thought that they
historical
were.
element to the game, yeah, where it's not just, again,
Mm,
it's not like a set. This isn't like a set thing
uh,
every game. This
no.
changes. Not only do the regions change depending on setup, but the powers they give you change depending on events that happen during Galen's life.
In which order they happen,
Hmm.
because they could come up all in the start. It could flip in the start of the game, or it could flip in the last round of the game. And there's always one fate card away from the game, so there's change there also. And there's four extra region cards for every level, social level. So there's like one third used in every game.
Hmm.
So there's variability.
Yeah.
That's if someone wants to know a funny story about board game development. It was like I pitched this to Ion Sierra Madre Games in Spiel, and they were like, could you make like more complexity to the game? And that was
Hmm.
like funny for a game designer, because it's typically all about, you should streamline this and streamline. They went, we want more, like all of these regions should be different.
Yeah.
And can
I
you make
think
that, like, yeah.
the thing about Ion is not necessarily that
Mm,
they want more complexity, but they
mm,
want more realism, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah. Mm,
it's because we actually are, we also do develop the games to make it more streamlined, but we want to
mm,
add more um, elements that make it more like a simulation, more like a real game, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that's essentially what this does. I think is you have
Mm,
a more simulational element where this is going to happen at some point, and you have to kind of deal with that. Where it makes it more of a
uh,
living game than it does just your typical Euro, where all the spaces are always the same, and you're just going there and getting 3 wood, right? Like,
uh,
you're still moving cubes around, but it means a little more, I feel like, in these games. So it's not just the typical
yeah.
Euro.
Yeah, that's why I approached them, because I didn't
Yeah,
want the history to be streamlined away.
yeah.
That's why I approached Ion Sierra Madres. And the fate cards were there earlier also, already. And then the levels, social levels, six regions were there, but they said that we would like you to make more regions. And I was like,
Yeah,
I'll make more
yeah,
regions. And then, of course, 14 regions, that's 14 cards. I need four more, four more, that to make it like a
yeah.
18. And that was like, uh, that was, I really enjoyed that part, because it gave me something new it took like I worked on this for a year. But this was at the 19th spiel a year ago, and I've been working for it for months. But it's everything fit, and it made the game better. And also, I had to lose my die. I had a die for the gladiator contest and the medical contest. I thought that the alea jacta est stuff, the Romans like to die. They were like, man, make up something new. And that's the good part of being with a publisher. You know, you do these things yourself, and it's better without the die. The medical contest became much better, but
Hmm.
only a publisher will say that,
Yeah.
like we have skin in the we have skin in the game.
Yeah.
You do better.
That's the one thing that I found that I think some games lack is just development, right? Like if you have, designers are brilliant, but no matter how good you are as a designer, you need somebody, you need an editor, right? You need somebody to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
in there
Mm,
and look at a work with fresh eyes and say, as much as you may like this element, it doesn't really
mm,
work, or when you do
mm,
when you do just a certain amount of development, there are certain things that I have uh, um, I've been very surprised that completely it'll never cease to amaze me how like a simple change in a game can make such a
mm,
drastic difference. And just
mm,
certain things that I would think, oh, well, if you remove that, you're going to remove the heart
mm,
of this game and it's not going to be as fun.
mm,
And then you remove it and you play it and it's like, oh wow, this actually does make the game a lot better. And you never would have thought,
mm,
but that's I think the benefit of working in a studio model where you're working with different people
mm,
as
mm.
compared to
Yeah,
just like working on your own, right? People have different
yeah, yeah,
ideas,
yeah.
and you can try stuff out, and yeah, it's one reason why I like working in the studio model. It's a
Yeah,
very it's a very like eye-opening approach to design.
yeah. And I mean, my like opinion with working with a small publisher earlier, it's when the other person has skin in the game, as I would say, because playtesters are always like, if you just have playtesters, you might know them, or you somehow you coerce
Hmm.
people to playtest your game. They will give you like opinions and ideas, but they won't like put you against the wall and say that come up with something new. And when you have worked on a game for many years, you basically know the
Yeah.
basic basic system of the game very well. So you can actually, this is something that you can do and nobody else can do. Nobody else can like see the whole of the game, how everything will click when
Hmm.
you change something, because you could change something and it would like mess up a balance here. But actually, when you've been thinking about the game for 4 years, if somebody says that there's going to be now four medicine cards and not five, you will immediately see that if it's a problem somewhere, that will that mean that there's going to be enough cubes or something in the end game or something like that. So you can come up with new solutions better than anyone, but somebody really has to say to you that you really have to come up with a new solution.
Yeah.
And a playtester will never say that. They won't contradict you
Yeah,
or say something.
playtesters are Cole Worley
We
actually
love
has
you.
a
We love
yeah.
you.
Playtesters are great. I mean, I'm a playtester and I've been playtesting games for
Mm,
years. Cole
mm,
Worley has a good philosophy on
mm,
this, in that playtesters are essential, but they're not. They have a role to play, right? And their role is you you come up with a thing and then you see if it works. And that's kind of
mm,
the give and take. But like you
mm,
said, they're not the designers. They're not the developers.
mm,
Like it's not their
mm,
job to kind of tell you like this should be removed, this should
mm,
be added. They may give suggestions,
mm,
but it's really
mm,
more, the developer, the designer that needs to,
mm,
you know, take stuff out, put stuff in, and then
mm,
play test it and see how well it works.
mm.
And everyone kind of has a role to play. Um,
Yeah.
but going back to this game a little more, because there's a couple other elements that I want to talk about.
Mm, Mm-hmm.
The journey right here. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned
Yeah.
previously, there are some players that there's some the more richer folks go to their rustic villas, the Villa Rustica,
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
escape the festering disease of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And can you explain more about how we have one of the fake cards over here, how the journey works and what it is exactly that you're doing there?
Yeah. This comes again from a like a passage in the biography of Galen, that he really didn't want to like leave his work in Rome. He had things figured out. He had 40 scribes working for him, and he was churning out books and healing people. And then the emperor came and said that you are one of my court doctors. You will accompany me to a campaign in against the Marcomanni. Let's go. And he would once go, and it took him the whole winter, and he was miserable. He was not like a big patriot or anything. He was actually not a good person, but a great doctor. That was
Hmm.
what one would learn when.
Like many geniuses are. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, and full of himself, and basically that idea came from this, that I tried different ways of doing the military campaigns, because also that was a place, as I said earlier, where you could, like, if you were lucky to get to dissect the actual human being and everything like that. So that was the start of the journey, and then it became like. It's a play action you will do with more stakes, because you will actually lose one action pawn for the whole of the
Hmm.
next round. So basically every round is 1 year, so you would basically go to the journey in the end of the year, and it will also take part of the next year.
Yeah,
So
so if
so
as your action you could go here, and you
yeah,
have two things that you could do. You could either cure, let's say that there's
there
a cube there.
probably won't be much cubes there, because the journey card,
Yeah,
which is the fate card on that place, won't bring cubes to that
yeah.
place.
But yeah,
But
you would go here, and then you could
mm,
either theoretically do this action, which is whatever it
yeah,
would be. In this case,
mm,
possibility to perform venesection. So you could perform a venesection, right?
yeah, as the
Or
secondary action.
Or
Yeah,
you could go on a journey and do this, which is a
yeah,
first player gets their philosophy track to maximum because they followed Galenus to Pergamum to,
yeah.
learn more about whatever it is Galenus was working on.
There, basically, you will just follow him to his hometown, and you will learn a lot. And of course, every doctor, a good doctor, is also a philosopher, like Galenus said. So basically, you would gain your philosophy track to the max. And these journeys are basically historical events that happened, and I wanted to add them, and then made this, like, it's a choice if you want to lose a pawn for 2 rounds, plus you cannot go on a journey on the following years. That would be like,
Hmm.
journeys were extremely hard. Even the doctors would go by foot, so, and they were dangerous. And one great anecdote from Galenus was that some innkeepers would feed the guests human flesh and say it's pork, so he didn't like making journeys. But he did, because he had to get different stuff and visit his hometown, and people would walk and go on journeys. So you will, like, chance that the possibility of going in an even better journey the next round, and you will have only 5 action pawns for the
Yeah.
next round, because you are wary
Yeah, so
from the
yeah, that I
travel.
mean, when you go on a journey, you can't do the stuff in Rome. Your pawn is over here on this journey. It's going to take a
Mm,
round to be able to come back.
yeah.
So that is that part of the game. We the one thing that we need to mention that we haven't yet is essentially we saved the best for last, and that's the contests.
Mm,
So we have the
yeah.
contest track here, and
Hmm.
essentially, when at the end of your turn, I guess we can describe it.
Hmm.
At the end of your turn,
Yeah.
how does a contest work?
So after everyone has gotten all of their results, so
Hmm.
basically, if you don't have any more action pawns anywhere, then you pass and let the other people do the rest of their actions. And after nobody has any of those left, then there will be the medical contest. And the medical contest, in the first round, Galenus Galen will start in the highest, basically best position, and in the following rounds, Galen will be basically either doing solely studying and writing if everything is good in Rome. So if the players have been able to clear out all of the sick people of Rome, Galen will again start at the very rightmost spot. But for every region that still have sick people, Galen will be working with the basically the next year. So he will go left towards the players one step. So he cannot focus so much on the medical contest himself. And the medical contest, there is an action place
So,
for medical contest.
sorry to interrupt, but to give you a general idea of what we're talking about
Mm,
here, let's say that in this case, we
mm,
did a very bad job, and all of these
mm,
people are still diseased. So
yeah,
there's five regions that have disease. That means that Galen
yeah,
would move one, two, three, four, five, right?
yeah, and he will
Because
move
he has to he,
after this year's contest. The contest is up
mhm,
first, so in the beginning of the game he's in the first
yeah.
place, and now after the contest he would move
Right.
for
And
the next year.
this would happen in the cleanup phase. So what you're talking
Yeah.
about is because Galen had to concentrate more on treating patients because we're doing such a bad job, he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
able to do his other work. That means it's going
Mm-hmm.
to be easier to because
Mm-hmm.
you move this way, right?
Yeah.
And then if you do better than Galen does, you get more
Mm-hmm.
scrolls during the contest. So essentially, if
Yeah.
Galen is too busy curing patients, he can't concentrate as much on doing, these show-off type uh, competitions, and it's
Yep.
more likely for you to be able to um, do better. And
Yes.
that'll get you more scrolls, which will get you more
Yeah.
knowledge, more fame, etc. Whereas
Yeah.
if these get cured, these get removed, then Galen doesn't move as much, and then it's much harder to have do well in a contest. You would need a
Yeah.
lot more knowledge and skill to be able to go further in the contest. So
Yes.
continue as to how the contests work.
Yeah. So basically, I'm mentioning the theater. So
Hmm.
theater is the place where the contest is held, and you can use your time solely in preparation for the contest. So if you go here as an action, when you get results there, you can actually
Move
make
up.
the first person can move Galen pawn one to the right, or
Hmm.
if they don't want anyone to go be better than Galen, one to the left. And also here you will get the skill level of movements in the color where Galen is presently. So now here you could if you would go to the theater, get results, you see that my skill level is one in yellow. I would get one step. So I'm one closer to victory in the contest if I use time preparing for the contest. When the contest happens, it's of course because it's all about showmanship and being the best in science, and the queen of sciences is philosophy. You will actually use your philosophy in the contest. So it's a hidden auction in the end of the round, and everybody will bet
So,
philosophy.
yeah,
And
to clarify the little more, so essentially what you're
mhm,
doing, before the contest starts, you could go to the theater to
mhm,
increase your either move a Galen more this way or move more this way depending on what your skill level is. So
yes,
if the contest is in black and you have
mhm,
two, does it have to be here to go up to, or does it have to
yeah,
be, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you are
yeah,
here in black, that means that you're in the
mm,
second
mm,
level, and you can move up two
yeah,
in this track when you're doing a
yeah,
medical contest because you know more about black bile diseases than you
yes,
know about phlegm diseases or yellow diseases, sorry, gout diseases.
mm,
So that would be something that you do before the contest. So during the
yeah,
contest, you're going to have a blind bid. So everyone is
mm,
going to bid the amount of focus cubes that apply to
In the
that
correct
contest,
color. Yes.
right? So in this
Yes.
case, if it's a black contest, then you only bid with the black cubes that you have in your focus. So if you cured
Yeah.
and decided, if you cured 2 black diseases and you decided to take those
Mm,
as focus and not as points, right? You now
mm,
have 2 black cubes that you can use for bidding. And then you can also
yes.
use your philosophy. So you would have, let's say that you're maxed in the
Mm,
philosophy track here. In this case,
mm,
if if Galen is here, so we're
mm,
doing a contest for black bile
mm,
maladies. I
mm,
have 2 focus cubes, so that means that I have 2 cubes that I can bid with, and I have 4 philosophy. That means that I can
mm.
bid a maximum of 6,
Yes.
right? And then everyone
Mm,
is going to in the actual game, everyone is going to, and we're still discussing how this is going to work, but you're going to put
mm,
a certain you have white cubes to count
mm.
for the you have white cubes to
Philosophy.
count
Yeah.
for the philosophy, and then you have
Mm,
these cubes, and then you're going to put a closed fist with the cubes in the hand, and then you're gonna
mm,
open it up and see who bid the most. And
mm,
much like a Tammany Hall bid or any other blind bidding game like that,
mm,
everyone spends everything, right? So
mm.
even if you lose whatever you spent.
Yep.
In the actual Tabletop Simulator module, you're gonna use these bidding discs, and you're just gonna put, okay,
Mm,
uh, I'm gonna bid this much. I'm gonna bid 6 cubes, and then you put it in there so that other people can't see it, right? So you can't see what that is
mm,
now, and then everyone puts it out at the same time, and
mm.
that's what you bid. And then
Mm.
what you bid is how far you go up the track.
Yeah, you move that many spaces
Yeah.
to the right, and then we see where everybody else is. And as you remember, the person who is the most to the right
Mhm.
is the first player for the next round.
Mhm.
They will gain 3 fame, and that could be bad
Yeah.
because, but it also could be good. And they will get a publication.
A
They will
scroll, one
do
of
a,
these blue. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. They would write a memoranda for their exploits of the in the contest and give it to the patron of the contest. They, for instance, at one point, Galen did a demonstration with 70 different exotic animals
Mhm.
during 3 days, just to prove a point, and he had a very rich anatom fan dude, and all of the other doctors could yell stuff for him to do, and he would find the body parts, and he would challenge them, for instance, and you come here and put these guts back, and they couldn't put them back right, and he was ha, 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 here it goes, and then he would like show how it works. So basically those were always exactly like gladiator contests. They
Yeah.
were like sponsored by
Yeah.
somebody. But okay, to
So
go back.
yeah, you're
Mm,
you're moving up, and then if
yeah,
you actually pass Galen, then you also get another scroll.
exactly, and that's how you could shoot for the 8 scrolls. So
Yeah.
basically, you would like spend philosophy like crazy, and try to get 8 scrolls, and that's why somebody might want to move Galen away from
Hmm.
you, and that would also make it necessary for other players to really compete in the contest. Plus, the first player place is very good in the game because basically you can almost save an action compared to the others.
So it's
So,
an interesting dynamic, the way that everything plays together, because you could get points from curing cubes, right? And that's
mm,
that's gonna
mm,
earn you points. Or you could decide, I'm not gonna cure patients. I'm going to
mm,
concentrate only on getting scrolls and winning contests,
mm,
and if causing Galen to have to do more of the work himself, which
mm,
makes it easier for you to win those contests. So
mm,
there's a lot of tension and push and pull in the game where some people are doing this and some people are doing this, and people
mm,
can maybe work together to get all of these cubes off so that somebody that's maybe trying to work on having a good
mm,
contest doesn't
mm,
doesn't work as well. Um,
mm.
So
And
there's a
some of
lot of,
the
there's a lot of elements to it that really kind of work well together, I think.
and yeah, and some of the there's some regions which also affect the contest. So basically, there's the Domus Galen. So basically, Galen's house, where you
Hmm.
if you get the results there, you get to move Galen, but only to the right because he's you are helping him with his studies. So
Yeah. I really like this idea of medical contests. I know that it was the
yeah, I know.
inspiration for
Yeah.
the game, but I really like this
Yes.
idea of like,
Yes. That's.
because you hear this a lot in history, like, or even in movies like The Prestige, where you have like the two magicians that are
Mm,
like fighting each other, or just like
mm,
gladiators, like you mentioned, or, Tesla versus Edison, where they were each
mm,
doing like their own kind of electrical showmanship, right? Like where
mm,
Edison would, electrocute an elephant to show you how dangerous AC power was, or just these geniuses that would spend their time just showing up,
mm.
their competitors,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it was no
I,
different, obviously, in this time, and
no,
that element of the game is, yeah.
he really had to dissect that elephant. That took medicine forward.
Yeah.
No, he just wanted to show, look, this creature has a heart like it, and the patrician level, and it was like medicine was popular. It was a popular thing for people to think like a part of philosophy. How do we work and everything? So it was very, very interesting for people to see these things, and they were like they were also entertainment. Like
Hmm.
I remember when I was a kid, and they were like these doctor shows, like documentary type doctor shows, which would only show like surgery being done. So basically, at this time, also like surgery and healing people was also a great expector sport. So people would go to their friends and see how they were treated, and to look just for interest.
Yeah.
They didn't have Netflix at that time.
Yeah, I think it's a really fascinating topic. I think this game is a
Mm.
really fascinating topic, and it's a unique topic. You don't, there aren't that many games about medicine in general, and there are,
Mm.
to my knowledge, none about ancient medicine.
Yeah,
There's
I've been a bit neurotic the last few years and been checking around, and I
yeah.
haven't found anything.
It's a unique theme, and that really
Mm.
grabs me more than anything. I mean,
L-
I'm always, and that's something that we try to do at Ion. Like, if it's a unique theme, that is going to be the first thing that perks my interest, right? Like
yeah.
piques my interest is like, oh, I haven't heard about this before, and I can learn. I've already learned so much about,
Mm.
Galenus and ancient medicine, and this entire time period, and we're only getting started.
Yeah, yeah. It was even when Rogue One, the movie came out, and Matt Mikkelsen had the character named Galen Erso. I was like,
Mhm.
oh no, now somebody will get the idea of.
No, but even,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's nothing but good to have these
Mm.
themes out there, and
Mm.
have these, again, that's what we're trying to do at Ion. We're trying
Mm.
to convey these ideas and convey these time periods and these,
Mm.
this history in a fun way, in a way like this game
Mm.
is like a good game if it was just, a game about really anything. But I feel like it's much better because there's endless number of like Roman themed games out there, right? But they're all very
Mm.
kind of generic Roman themes, right? It would
Mm.
be great to it's great to have something that's more themed towards like something like this, where it's and we're making plans to show more of real Roman times, right? Like people didn't wear
Mm.
togas, right? People didn't,
Mm.
that there were actual real people, and like the real,
Mm.
real Roman life and what people really did at
Mm.
that time is something that hasn't been explored in board games, I
Mm.
think, enough. It's always
And
been like battles, or, gladiators, or
mm.
races, or
And gladiators were not like buff; they were actually bulky
yeah.
because they ate fava beans and barley because they needed to be bulky and have a lot of like fat because then they could get like really flashy cuts without harm, and blood
Ah,
would like spurt, and they were not nothing like you see these like
yeah.
these modern bodybuilders. They were not like that. They were actually bulky because it was a show, and
It's more
people
like
from
sumo
far away,
wrestlers. Yeah.
yeah, almost, and people from far away should like wanted to see blood, but the owners of the gladiators and the gladiators themselves, if they were privateers, didn't want to die or get like muscles cut, so they were
Hmm.
bulky, and that's like the real interesting stuff, as you said, about history, that it's full of it. And I think why it's always trading in Mediterranean, it's because there's a part a place in history when things were simple enough to abstract into a game, and why the stock market is best with the 1800s train.
18XX. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was stock market was simple enough to abstract at that age, and after
Hmm.
now you have futures and all kinds of options and stuff, like nobody could
Yeah.
understand that in board game form. But in the 1800s, you could still like see a train going, and that this train will have this
Yeah.
value. You could assess that, but like you said earlier, who could have assessed that like Apple would be like this big?
Yeah.
How do you measure these things anymore? But
Yeah.
you could measure train tracks, and you could measure trading in the Mediterranean. So I think that's part of the reason why so many games out there are not just that everybody is doing the same thing, but you have to have some kind of simplification.
But yeah, this game is fascinating.
Mm.
I am looking forward to working more with you and
Mm.
the Ion team. We are looking, we're really excited about working more with you to make this game even better.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned, the Kickstarter is on October 20th. And
Mm.
the Kickstarter ends November 9th, and then it will be available in the Pledge Manager as usual. Um, and we will, continue to work on this. We're excited to show Josephine's art once
Yeah.
that, once that is available, and
Mm.
I work on the usability and make this, a more presentable game, and have,
Mm.
work out, the different dynamics. I know that there's a solo version that was recently added. Do you want to talk briefly about that?
Yeah. That was my Greek holiday this year. In August was cancelled, so I had time to work on the solo, and the solo is all about it happens in Pergamon, so it's a prequel to this. So
Hmm.
it's you are playing as young Galen, and as young Galen, you will have challengers, and the challengers each inhabit. You have four regions of Pergamon. You will use all of the cards all mixed together, so there's a lot of variability, but only four regions, and each region will have one challenger like controlling that region, and the medical contest tract will have those four challengers working in player order of the medical contest track. So you will in that game move on the medical contest one step for each pawn you don't use. So you if you want to get higher, go before your challengers, because they will eat away, for instance, the medical medicine cards, and they will eat away your patients. So you will want to go
Yes,
before
medicine
them, so
cards.
you want to use fewer actions, but if you use your actions you get less stuff done. And every region has a challenger, and then there are the way of meeting that challenge is different. You have basically 16 different challenges to go over, and they are randomized so that every time each of the four quadrants has a different a random of the four challengers, but that challenger, how do you get rid of him, is different in every game. And one of the challengers is Galen's father, which is, I think, very Greek. So you have
Yeah.
to go past your father, so you will someday be ready for Rome.
Okay, well,
And
yeah,
they
that's
are they
that's exciting, and we'll definitely have more information about the solo game And more information about the game in general, just the art, the different mechanics. We have a playthrough up right now. We'll eventually get a more concise teach. The game is still in development, so we're gonna have definitely updated videos when something changes, either in the mechanics or in the art or in uh, the way anything works. So, for example, this right here, we didn't discuss this because this is actually the old contest track. So
Yeah,
this is
that's.
actually, gone in this game, or
Hmm.
rather, it's been moved to this, this track right here. And even this is,
Hmm.
just taken from. This is really just a spreadsheet that you created that we put on top of
But
the
no,
old,
my art.
yeah, the old. Well, it was put on a
You
section of
you
the board.
copied.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
put on a section of the board that had something different, right? So the game is
Mm.
still, it's still in development and will continue to change and grow and get better. And we'll
Mm.
give you those updates as they happen. All right, HP, do you have anything
Mm.
else you want to uh, say? Or
No, no.
okay, well, it was
Thank you very
really,
much. It's a real passion project, and like I've I've been like thinking about this history for 4 years now, and I would say daily, and making this, and read his biographies, and reading his own words also. So there's basically the number one book I could recommend, which is really good and also in Audible, is the Prince of Medicine, Galen in the Roman Empire. That's by Susan P. Maddern. That's fascinating, in my opinion, and it's like, as you said also, it's a fascinating view to history through different eyes. No wars, no warriors,
yeah.
just like
So
the
yeah, if you
also
want
the
to learn more about that history, definitely check that
yeah.
out. It's on apparently it's on Audible as well. And
Yeah.
that's a great thing about board games is that it gets you more
Mm.
interested in these other subjects,
Mm.
and you want to read more about these other subjects. That's definitely what's happened to
Yeah.
me in different games. But
Yeah.
yeah, HP, it's been great talking to you. Thank you for spending the
Yeah.
time going over your
Yeah.
game, and I look forward to having more discussions and showing more about the progress of this game.
Yeah.
All
Thank you.
right, so long.
Good night or morning, whatever you have.
It's morning over here, but I know it's night over
Yes.
there.